and welcome to another episode of Reflecting with AINA. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Prakash Kotagal. Dr. Kotagal is currently a professor of neurology and the section head for the Pediatric Epilepsy at the Cleveland Clinic Epilepsy Center. He served many leadership roles nationally and internationally over the years, and currently we're proud to say he is the president of our own AINA organization. Dr. Kotagal is an exceptional clinician, and he gets referrals from around the world who come to see him at the Cleveland Clinic. In addition to that, he's published extensively with close to 150 publications in peer-reviewed journals and close to 50 book chapters. He is also reviews others' works, as he is on the editorial board of many journals, including international journals like the Journal of Clinical Neurophysiology and International Journal of Epilepsy. So I thank Dr. Kotagal on behalf of everyone for taking the time today to join us and sharing some of his experiences with all the AINA members. Thank you, Dr. Kotagal.
Thank you, Dr. Rathor. It's a pleasure to join you. Just a small correction that I'm no longer the head of pediatric epilepsy. I stepped down, and now it's my colleague, Ajay Gupta. Also a fellow Indian and AINA member as well.
Perhaps he's the next person that we need to call then.
That's right. So anyway, I look forward to our conversation today.
So I guess we'll start with early career. So if you would like to share some of your experiences from your early career, maybe from India, or some memorable experiences that you think helped shape your career or were instrumental in kind of positioning you in your career to bring you where you are now.
Yeah, this actually goes back, we are influenced by our mentors. And so all the way back from medical school, Professor Chandrasekhar, who's at Jawaharlal Institute, Jipmer, Pondicherry, where I went to medical school. So he had he was an internist, but he had an interest in neurology. So that was one person who motivated me. The other person was actually Dr. Kurupada Radhakrishnan. So I got to work with him, under him as a house officer at PGI Chandigarh. He's just a phenomenal teacher and mentor. He himself has, gone on to become such a major force in epilepsy surgery in India. And he was the director at Sri Chitra Institute in Trivandrum. So he was the other person who influenced me. Probably the third person is when I came to the United States and I was at St. Louis University for my pediatric residency. And there, my brother, Suresh Kotagal, who's also a child neurologist, he was there. And so he also got me interested in neurology and child neurology. So that's how I kind of got my start into neurology. Then I came to Cleveland Clinic in 1984 to do my residency in child neurology with David Rothner, who was the head of child neurology at that time. And then the other major force and mentor who's been instrumental for me has been Hans Luters. Dr. Hans Luters was the head of epilepsy initially, and then became chair of the Department of Neurology at Cleveland Clinic. And under his guidance and and his encouragement, he gave me my first research project to do, which had to do with looking at seizure semiology. And his hypothesis was that the semiology, especially in focal seizures, is likely having to do with activation of different parts of the brain, depending on the where the seizure originates in the brain and how it propagates. So he gave me a project to do, which was quite an ambitious project. And we looked at a pure subset of patients with temporal lobe epilepsy, looked at the semiology, we had to document, when each symptom appeared, at what time period, so that we could do cluster analysis. and with that be able to show the progression of symptoms as well as teasing out subtypes of temporal lobe epilepsy. And so that was a major project. But in the course of that, as I looked at hundreds of videos of patients who had temporal lobe epilepsy, I realized that there was certain phenomenon which previously had not been described. So that's where I noticed first ipsilateral automatisms, and then I paid attention to the opposite hand. I saw that was curling up, and that was the dystonic posturing. And then it went on to version and other lateralizing signs that came about. The other thing that happened working at my institution, Cleveland Clinic, that I got to meet with a lot of not only other colleagues, but a number of fellows who came through for their training and with whom I got to participate in some projects. And so we continued this semiology research going forward, and then looking at other things like inter-observer agreement, do different observers find the same sign and agree with that or not. And out of that project led to other features such as the figure 4 posture, for instance. So it's been an exciting time period to see how how the value of seizure semiology has now been recognized. And then another project which was came out a few years ago, this work had to do with looking at how good is semiology compared with other tests like MRI and EEG, because we rely on it so much for making decisions about epilepsy surgery, and to be able to quantify that. So that was also very gratifying to do. But what I'm going to say is that I've been fortunate to have had great mentors, and also very fortunate to have had a number of residents and fellows who have provided a lot of intellectual stimulation, and I just feel fortunate to be part of that effort.
Well, I'm sure you mentored a lot of them, and they feel kind of the same for you.
And exactly, it is a chain, and I think that we benefit from the experience and wisdom of our predecessors, and then we are in a position to also influence the next generation of neurologists as well. So it's an exciting to be to have that opportunity.
Definitely. I know you mentioned kind of when you came from India to the US, your brother, Dr. Kotagal, was here, and he kind of helped influence you somewhat. Do you feel like the transition from the Indian medical system to coming to a US medical system, do you feel like it was a big transition? Were there any barriers you felt, or do you feel it was pretty easy?
I think that, firstly, I think the education that I received in India, and my institution was Jipmer Pondicherry, prepared me well and gave me a very solid educational foundation on which to build. Much of that knowledge was kind of book knowledge, things that I had read but not had a chance to actually, see firsthand. At the same time, there were other things that had brought, knowledge and skills from India, having to do with certainly, coming up with the differential diagnosis, the physical examination, and so I think those are kind of strengths that graduates from India, bring. Here we have a different way, a different system, and so we get to work with patients over a longer period of time. We have more time to spend per patient, both inpatient and outpatient, and really understand some of the details about their cases. And the way that medicine is organized in the US is vastly different. So that is definitely a culture shock. And I think one of the things that I realized very quickly is that one of the things that I learned very early on, I remember my chief resident telling me, is that if you don't know something, just admit it, okay? be honest. And I think that honesty and transparency was kind of drilled into me. So that if you don't know something, say, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And so I think that's something that's a value that we impart to our trainees, so that don't try to pretend you know everything, because you'll get tripped up, and that would be more embarrassing actually. But rather be transparent and honest. And if you don't know the answer, say, I'm going to look into this and get back to you. So I think that is important. The other thing I learned, which I think is very different in the United States, is being humble. And so when dealing with patients and families, that when some things don't go right, okay, or there's an adverse outcome, the patient decompensates for any kind of reason, to keep the family informed. Okay, yes, your child is very sick, and this is what we're doing. And as opposed to this tendency sometimes to one not deal with bad news and so on. But I think I learned along the way, especially my training in the US, is that to be transparent, to be forthright, and good communication. I think those are kind of some things that I learned. The other thing is that not to take it personally when sometimes patients become upset for whatever reason, and they or their loved one is going through an illness which puts stress on them, on the family system, and to be able to see things from their point of view. So those are some of the kind of things that I learned, which I had not had experience with in India. And the final thing was that I think that the nursing profession is at a higher standard in the United States. They have a higher qualification, and the nurses are very capable, and they point out things that we may have overlooked, and to regard them as valuable colleagues and partners in the healthcare team. Which is again something that I had not fully appreciated when I was in India. It may have to do with my own shortcomings, but I think that was a big thing. So that in dealing with other healthcare professionals, whether they be nurses, technologists, and others in the healthcare field, I think that the standard is quite high, and one has to treat them as professionals with respect, and taking their input in managing the health outcomes. So those are some of the things that I learned along the way. I think transparency, honesty, ethics, bioethics, these are all things that play an important role. And I think that as I've kind of gone further in my career, I've realized how important those things are.
I think those are the things that make you one of the most sought physicians. People come from all over to see you in Cleveland Clinic. And I think what you're mentioning, kind of that humility, empathy, respect for, colleagues, your teammates, I think that's an important character needed for all leaders too. So I think that's where that reflects in your leadership also. So those are great pointers for some of our young colleagues, some of the trainees that are starting early and, might start feeling, after fellowships or after we've attained certain accomplishments, we might start feeling that we might be superior to others. So always remember, there's more to learn, and there's someone who might know more. So.
Well, the other thing to point out is that, the medical legal aspect of our practice, so that, there are, compared to other countries, higher numbers of, patients or hospitals, that get sued for adverse outcomes, even if it's not the physician's fault. But in dealing with families, again, having that respect and humility and empathy, I think goes a long way. And I've been fortunate to have had very few instances where, I was, there was a malpractice suit that was filed. Usually it was for, where someone got sued and then, you get named as a co-defendant, if you will. But those have been rare, and I can count them on one hand, the number of times that there was anything I had to do. But those are the aspects, I think, in communicating with patients and families to let them know that you're on their side. Okay, that you're going to do everything you can to help them with whatever they're dealing with.
Right. Yeah. So listening and letting them know that you're trying to address their concerns and you're
right.
not decision-making team also.
Exactly.
That's great advice for everyone. I know you're extremely busy clinically and with your research and other things, but you still find time for things like, your involvement with AINA, your leadership in AINA. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with AINA and kind of your journey, share some experiences about your journey?
So it's interesting, and all of these things kind of evolve gradually. But I've met with several colleagues from India over the years, and wanted to interact with them during our major conferences, whether they be at the American Epilepsy Society, which I go to every year, or the American Academy of Neurology and others, Child Neurology Society, for instance, to be able to interact with colleagues from India to learn about what's going on with developments in the field in India. So that was kind of a natural interest of mine. And then myself and Dr. Sanjay Singh, who is the immediate past president of AINA. So he and I are both epileptologists, and so we felt that we should have something. At that time, we were not active in AINA, but we would go to AES, American Epilepsy Society, and we began to organize a meeting that would take place for an hour and a half every year, and invite our other colleagues, Indian neurologists, neurologists from India, as well as Indian neurologists practicing in the States and Canada, to that. And so that was very gratifying and was appreciated by all who attended. And then we realized that actually what we were doing was could be done more easily and efficiently by being a chapter of AINA. So in I think it's early 2010, we had gone to the American Academy of Neurology and went to the AINA meeting. And Dr. Pradeep Sahota, was one of the past presidents of AINA, was there, and we talked to him about, could AES or AES Indian neurologists, could we be part of AINA? And they welcomed us, and in fact, they got us on the executive committee, both of us, very quickly, because they wanted us to welcome us into the AN. So that has that's been very gratifying for us, because it gives us resources that we did not, as individuals, have at that time, so that we could organize the epilepsy chapter of AINA and accomplish much more. So we've done that, and it's been a great relationship.
Definitely. And I mean, you and Dr. Singh have then gone on and led the AINA. And I know with your recently, there has been a lot of kind of newer initiatives that you're trying to lead. And some of them is also trying to establish a more global presence and Indian neurologists are respected all over the world, and forming those collaborations would be helpful, not just for AINA as an organization, but all the members would benefit from that. And would you like to share with us some of those initiatives or early discussions that you've had with other leaderships?
Yeah, so starting back, I believe around 2015, so we had discussions with a number of Indian neurologists who were attending the AINA meeting during AAN. And so this was, at that time, we floated the idea of whether we could actually have more formal relationship. And I believe it was in 2018, actually, we drew up a memorandum of understanding that was signed to and agreed by both Indian Academy of Neurology and AINA, so that we have this close relationship, and we can, AINA members can attend the Indian Academy of Neurology meetings without charge, and vice versa. So I think that became an important kind of meeting of the minds, if you will. And then the other thing that we realized is that there is a need, because we asked them, where do you see further progression of this relationship? And they expressed the interest that some Indian neurologists would want to come to the US and observe for a short period of time, 4 to 6 weeks, at an institution in the United States. And can we facilitate that? So we have identified a number of institutions where AINA members are active that would accept observers from India to come and spend time for up to 4 weeks. And so AINA helps with AINA, and AINA members are willing to host them. We identify these opportunities for them. We give them a stipend of $1,000 that AINA provides. And the Indian Academy of Neurology identifies up to 4 individuals a year. They pay for their travel to come to the States. Some of the costs are still being borne by the attendees. But I think the main thing is that we are providing an opportunity to come and be observers at one of the institutions in the specialty that they happen to choose. So this has been very exciting and exciting opportunity that we made available, and there's great interest in continuing that. Unfortunately, during the COVID time period, we had to pause things. So right now we are working on accommodating the people who were supposed to come in 2020 and weren't able to come. So we're reaching out to them to see if we can provide that opportunity now. Then going forward from 2023, again, we will have another set of 4 trainees coming from India. So I think that is kind of a big highlight of this. And this is selected by Indian Academy. So that's how that takes place.
I think that's a great initiative. And I think at the last meeting, Dr. Surya and Dr. Casino were able to share some of the examples of how those collaborations are helping patients back in India also. And in the process, we're learning from, some people have really experienced physicians that are coming. So that exchange of kind of information, exchange of knowledge is really helpful.
Yeah.
And I know you had recently got a chance to visit India, and I appreciate it that you're still jet lagged. You just returned from India. So thank you again for meeting with me. But were you able to get some time to maybe spend time with family or do something interesting in India this trip?
Yeah, so I was given the task that I had to do some shopping for Indian clothes for my wife and 2 daughters. So I did go one afternoon to the village of Hauskas in southern Delhi, South Delhi near Qutub Minar area. And so I did some shopping there. I also went to Pune to see my brother. He lives in Pune. So got to meet him and his family. So spent 3 days there and then back to the US. So I don't think I had enough time to, fully adjust to the Indian time zone. And then already it was time to return back to the States. Short trip, but otherwise everything functioned well. Flights and everything was fine. It's always good to travel to India and eat the amazing food. So I think we tend to kind of overindulge when we go there. But it was a great time. The weather was wonderful. So it was a great time of the year to go, actually.
I'm glad that you have had everything went smooth and well. It always makes the experience a little better. And now we know who to get shopping tips from. So if anybody wants to know where to shop in Delhi, I guess Dr. Kotagal can be contacted.
Yeah, so there's that the village in Hauskas, and the other place is, of course, the Cottage Industries Emporium in near Connaught Place in Delhi. So those are the highlights of my my short trip.
Thank you for sharing that. You might be getting some messages regarding recommendations, but no, I really truly appreciate, even after such a busy trip, taking the time to just share your experiences and some advice for all our other AINA members. And, just like you mentioned, this is a great initiative. We all kind of get involved because we want to share with our colleagues and we want to learn, and sometimes, just collaborate and network, even if it's more culturally or personally, but it can end up into great endeavors and coming up with new initiatives. So thank you for providing that leadership and the opportunity. And again, encouraging all Indian neurologists here around the world to, become members and participate in this great collaboration. So thank you again, Dr. Kotagal.
So one thing I wanted to, in terms of the other kind of collaborations with our Indian colleagues, has been some of these volunteer camps, and Dr. Sanjay Singh has been active in them, and the other people who have been very active have been Jayant and Vinita Acharya, and so these volunteer camps take place in a number of places. Dr. Nirmal Surya in Maharashtra, he organizes camps on a regular basis. So AINA members are interested in participating, should contact Dr. Surya. So he can let them know when camps are being held, so they can plan their visits accordingly. Dr. Singh, Sanjay Singh, has been to several camps in Uttar Pradesh. And at some of them, Dr. Mamta Bhushan Singh from All India Institute in Delhi has joined him as well. So there were a number of opportunities like that. We're looking to try to do more of these camps in other parts of the country, so that is still being developed, that opportunity. But we plan to have these listed on our website in the near future, so that people who are interested want to donate some of their time for that could do that.
And it's a great opportunity. If you're going to, you can go visit back home and still be able to give back, and it's an important mission. And I feel like most
mission. And in doing so, we get to then interact with our Indian counterparts in neurology and see how healthcare is being provided. And we learn from them, and they learn and benefit from our experience. So this is a two-way exchange. So this has been great.
Yeah, and just like you mentioned, it is going to be on the website, and any initiatives that are upcoming, or you can reach out, and we'll have the information. If you have questions for any upcoming plans, you can just reach out to the contact information, and we'll try.
Or you can email me, and I'll be happy to guide them as well.
Thank you.
The other initiative, and I think that you and Rajiv Garg have been part of, have to do with collaborating with our colleagues in India on research endeavors. So this is something that going forward that we're looking to get off the ground.
Yeah.
So there can be collaboration, between our Indian colleagues and North American colleagues. So that will be another endeavor to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've mentioned like there are so many research projects, and we got to talk to some of our colleagues in India, Dr. Sailaja, who shared such interesting projects she's undertaking. So it's a great chance to collaborate, and I think that's just a great opportunity. So thank you for again mentioning those and taking the initiative for providing that leadership. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest for those opportunities.
Actually, speaking of Dr. Sailaja, I saw her at the hotel where we had the conference, and so she was eating dinner with a couple other people, Dr. Joy Desai and Dr. Sita Lakshmi from Hyderabad. So I got to sit down and chat with them. So that was a great opportunity to meet them.
Yeah, so again, if you can go to volunteer camps or do networks, we get to meet so many colleagues in India. So and vice versa. That's a great opportunity. I won't encroach on your time anymore. So thank you again for joining us today and taking the time, and always for your leadership. Thank you, Dr. Kotagal.
Thank you, Dr. Russell.